This is Chris Frew with BioBuzz, live today with one of my good friends, an awesome community member, Sarah Boynton. Sarah, welcome.
Hey.
We're excited to be here today to do another LinkedIn Live. We're going to be doing these a lot more just to keep the open, authentic communication and conversations going on about some of the things that are most pressing in the biotech industry today, which is dynamic and changing. We all see it. It's a wild time to be in biotech, and we're here to provide some information to help you navigate these waters. Today, we're going to be talking about, so bear with me because Sarah, you're like the queen of pollinate. You're the queen of bee puns here. So pollinating progress in talent selection in biotech. I love it. Well, why don't we start off? Just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and kind of why we're talking today.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. I'm so happy to be here and just have a platform to kind of share my experience, my knowledge, and I really appreciate it. I'm going on 14 years in the industry. I am truly an operations focused girl. I started right out of college. Without knowing anything about biotech. So I really fell into the world of biotech. I had been working at Red Lobster during my university career or university time. I got my chemistry degree. And my sister said, "Hey, I have a friend at Human Genome Sciences. They do cool stuff that you like science. Why don't you check it out?" So I ended up picking up, moving, and starting my career there 14 years ago, and started right in as an entry-level operator. Over the course of my career, I've changed organizations, been a part of a lot of acquisitions. It seems almost everywhere I've worked, it's been acquired by some large organization, but I've seen the good, the bad. Myself, I've grown so much. I'm not the same person I was 14 years ago. And that's what's great about the industry. You can learn, grow, meet people who are really supportive. And just kind of have gone through the gambit of training, investigation management, onboarding, and now consult on projects that are all around that: investigation programs, quality systems, training, and my favorite topic, human performance. How do we set up operations and the people who run them to be confident and error proofed is really, really important in our industry. So that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome. It's amazing. A couple things. One, I mean, I'm a recruiter, right? 20 years of recruiting. So I love the origin story.
Yes.
I love the origin story, like where you came from, like Red Lobster to Human Genome Sciences, one of the most pivotal companies in our region, that built the Maryland's ecosystem. And again, your journey has given you, really the palette that you're using to be such an effective consultant today.
Right.
So I'm excited to talk to you because we've been talking over the past year or so, and I think we actually connected around the Human Genome Science alumni event that
Yes.
which was really fun. But we've been talking a lot because you're really looking at training and helping organizations reduce errors, not just in operations, but you've uncovered a lot around how hiring impacts
Absolutely
organizational performance. And so we've been talking a lot about skills-based hiring, and I know you're a big fan of the talent lab that we're building to really democratize access to life science careers, but also, kind of connect employers and candidates directly together. So maybe could you talk a little bit about how some of the challenges you see that are in the talent acquisition these days that are impacting human performance in an organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little background on human performance for people who may not be aware. It's very simple. Your human performance equals behaviors plus results. Okay, so the factor there is the human. So human performance starts at talent acquisition. Okay, because it's really a lot of the themes around human performance are culture. How do we do the business? How are the processes established? How are people trained? how do we handle when situations happen? Is there an open, just culture where people can raise concerns and they're heard and taken care of? Or is this, do we have a policing quality unit that wants to assign blame, and people feel fearful of raising issues or talking about when things go wrong? So human performance and talent really go hand in hand, because when you hire someone and you put them in a role, especially among a team, because I'm really, I'm in operations, I work with teams and the team mindset. It's not always about the science. There's so many soft skills and that human element, that as someone who is coming from Red Lobster, I had to translate that during this 6-hour 7-panel interview at HGS. I had to translate how handling 10 tables during a rush hour, equates to being able to multitask and work on a manufacturing floor, or how ordering the drinks and supplies I needed at the bar where I worked, how that relates to supplier quality and materials control. So I think when it comes down to human performance and skills-based hiring, you're when you understand the skills that are required to be successful in a role, that allows you to pinpoint talent that may come from another industry, but still have those qualities and skill sets that will allow them to be successful. Because listen, it's we have to be honest with ourselves. Most organizations today, the training involved is reading a procedure.
Mhm.
Okay, and so if we throw someone into a clean room and expect them to operate heavy equipment that's may include a process that takes 3 weeks long, and we expect them to be trained in one day, uh, you're going to increase the likelihood for human error. Okay, so really, talent, human performance, understanding those skills that are required in the role, it helps balance both sides of the equation. Talent can pick and choose what roles really fit them. Like if I like working alone, I'm probably not going to want to work on a manufacturing floor.
Right.
I may want to be more autonomous, maybe batch record review or regulatory affairs. Maybe more leaning towards my wants and needs as talent. But then as an organization, when you clearly define those roles and responsibilities, it sets people up to see the bigger picture, see where they fit into the broader picture of the organization as a whole. And I'm going to pull from some data that McKinsey just recently released their 2023 report on organizations and workforce, and they said they found that improving role clarity improves accountability. So if I know what I'm supposed to do, I can be held to those
Mhm.
expectations and standards.
Yeah.
And that's really the foundation of our industry, our standards, policies, okay? Because that is how we can say, hey, you're not meeting the mark.
Yeah, but also let me challenge. Is that maybe part of the problem in hiring right now? Is that we think that people are looking at job positions and putting the description and say these are the standards, and I need these hard skills.
Yes.
Is that standards mindset impeding our ability to hire translational skills?
I think you need to take a risk-based approach. Okay, so there's certain roles that you can't just have anyone jump into. They have to have some type of education or background, even a certificate of such as regulations, quality. There has to be some understanding of that foundational GXP
Right.
background. But in terms of in operations, someone doing media prep, I've seen that definitely be an area where people have found success hiring outside of the industry,
Mhm.
because again, the hiring from a skills-based approach is kind of part of your diversity program, because when you bring in different ideas, people coming with different ways of looking at the world, especially when they come from outside biotech, there's there's more discussion, there's more open ideas being spread, and you have people who kind of have this closed mindset. They've been in the industry a while. They start thinking more creatively.
Yeah.
So by allowing, this draw of people who don't necessarily have a 4-year degree or 10 years experience, but have those specific skills that can be quantified, and assessed.
Well,
It's
let's
so
talk
important.
about that.
Yeah.
I mean, so because a skills-based approach could be like, hey, I need someone who has HPLC experience with, this equipment, but skills could also mean someone who has a skill of responding well under pressure. And so talk to me about, what do you think are the skills that hiring managers in, let's say, a production-based and biomanufacturing-based environment, right? You're accustomed to. What are those translational skills or aptitudes or things what are the ones that rise to the top, in your opinion, that we should be focusing more on and less on maybe experience, degree, 10 years experience of upstream process development with single-use bioreactors and, especially only wave, Sartorius bioreactors only, like.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, exactly. That's an excellent question. I'm gonna go lean back on human performance again and talk about
Love it.
these the high level error traps. So these are unfamiliarity with the task, stress, lack of proficiency and inexperience. So what you want to do is really assess, one, is this person willing and able to gain knowledge, to not only, because a lot of times, you hire someone and you expect them to be on top of their training, and a lot of it falls on the manager. Why isn't this person trained? It has to also be an individual who wants to take control of their own career, of their progression. And that goes back to why role is so important. If I fall into a role that I'm not happy with, I'm going to be less likely to get more training on it, to become more educated, to maybe get a certificate and improve my understanding and knowledge. So one, you want to make sure this person wants to learn, wants to be educated, and invests in their own development. And that's really important.
I love that. And I hear that all the time. I think that is one that you hit on. And the more we can assess for that, and as we're building out the talent lab, right, that's one of the things we're looking at is, how do we identify these translational skills, not the hard skills, not the things, but and we've heard this in several different ways, but it's the knowledge seeker, right?
Yes.
Who is the knowledge seeker? Because the knowledge seeker, that's, they work in this type of environment.
Exactly. And sometimes that's someone who wasn't in the industry, because they almost have something to prove. Like when I jumped from Red Lobster to this, fast-paced, very critical, I was in downstream. So, if you messed up, it could be millions of dollars. It's a lot of added stress. Like, whereas I messed up at Red Lobster, it's like, oh, someone didn't get their food, we'll recook
like
it, right?
Getting a 20 top at 11 a.m. before you close, right? That's
okay. So sometimes people who are hired from outside the industry, they feel like they have something to prove, so they do go a little bit more above and beyond, and attach to those people who have the knowledge at the site.
I love that. Well, let's keep talking. So that knowledge seeker, that's one, right? So that's a checkbox we can pass to talent acquisition.
Yeah.
What are some others that stand out to you?
To me, team player. Like I every time I interview someone, I like to understand, did they play a sport? And of course, that's not gonna just if they haven't, okay, I'm not hiring you.
Right.
Some people just aren't good athletes, but have they been in a team setting at some point in their life? And how did they handle working with people who didn't jive with them? How did they handle, gaps in their understanding of what they need to do and the skills? Did they work extra over the summer and get a coach? So really the team dynamic, because I've seen it. If you have one or two people that don't have the same passion or kind of mindset that the rest of the
Yeah.
team has, oh man, it can disrupt everything.
Oh
and,
yeah.
and lead to a higher likelihood for error, and those human nature error traps where you
Yeah.
have this misalignment of roles and people, doing the wrong thing. So absolutely, do they have team?
Teamwork is a good one. Can I pick on something you just brought up? You said someone who's like, you brought up, and I can't remember how you brought it, but it was, your different dynamics in the team, right? So it's not just the teamwork, but we've also heard willingness to address conflict, right?
Yes.
So whether if you see your supervisor do something that isn't the right SOP, right? Like, so there's an innate characteristic about people that understand their role and their mission and are willing to say, that doesn't look right over there.
Right.
You need to raise a flag.
Right.
So is that part of teamwork, or is that something else in itself?
That's going to be that's going to be heavily relied on by the culture, because like I said, and this may have been before we started, we were just kind of chatting, but it's easier to be wrong with the crowd than right alone. So you can find someone who says all the right things, who has all the great qualities, but if you put them into a team, especially if they're brand new, like they're brand new, they have never been in the industry, they have the skills you want, they have, maybe some micro credentials or whatever, but if they are placed on a team where their supervisor, their superiors, the quality team, the management team is asking them to do things that are not what is expected by the procedures, or are questionable when it comes to the regulatory, they may not have the impetus to say anything, because I don't know, I'm brand new to the industry. If my supervisor's doing that, then maybe that's okay. And it comes down to, are you creating a culture of speed is the most important, or quality? And you can have both. But it goes, I'm going to go back to sports again. I played basketball. When you start learning basketball, you can't dribble the ball like Michael Jordan and go up unless you're freak of nature. It takes time. You gotta start slow, and then you can speed up.
Yeah.
And that's the same with operations. You have to start slow, get the right habits, the right techniques in place, and then you can speed up, find those ways to create more efficient processes, alleviate some of that cognitive load on the brain because you've now automated some of your tasks. So if you're brand new to the industry and you go into an organization that doesn't have that foundation of training, coaching, correcting, and really looking at behaviors, you may end up doing yourself a disservice as talent, because you're now picking up bad behaviors or ways of working that at a more high reliability organization would never fly.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, this was okay at my last job. I really need to understand what good looks like. And so it's on the organizations to define that within their internal teams. What does good look like? What are the skills that will drive the most success? And how can those translate from other industries? That's really on the organization to do. But as a talent, it's also your due diligence to make sure you're asking the right questions. Oh, I'm sorry, my dog's messing with me. Asking the right questions to make sure you're not going into
and that's something we can help with, right? So when it comes to hiring, like, we can coach talent, right?
Exactly.
Because they're new. But So it sounds like some of it, again, it's culture and hiring for the right type of person, the right role, and then the right type of person that will fit that. But it's a double-edged sword. It started with culture, and I think where we are as an industry too, we haven't, the one thing we can say is that nothing has been the same for the past 5 years here.
Oh no.
So we had this rapid, wild experience through COVID where every organization was hiring, and quality probably suffered a little bit. And we had, or like these CDMOs are growing so fast, right, that they're trying to get customer product out, and now we're in this other world where, a lot of organizations are laying off. So that has another effect, right? Now you're asking current people to do more.
Exactly.
So that's probably why you're so busy as a human performance coach right now, because it's so dynamic in industry.
It goes back to the brain. It goes back to cognitive load. Think about like when you're driving somewhere and you got the music blaring and you're almost to your destination and you're trying to follow the maps. What do you typically do? You turn down the volume.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because your brain knows I got too much processing at the moment. I need to refocus, and that's why happiness in your role, stress management, is so important in our industry because it's a high stress job.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that could go wrong, including someone dying essentially if the patient gets a low something, the quality is not up to par, or so.
We had Nick Drosty on yesterday, and that was one of the reasons why we're saying that vets make great employees, because they are used to that high stress, high pressure environment where decisions really matter.
Yeah, then that goes back to what we were talking about, the list of kind of expectations. Absolutely, you need to ask, especially in your manufacturing roles, your quality roles, how do you handle stress?
Yeah.
Because I've worked at places where I felt the result of stress and actually had some physical, manifestations of that stress that was also kind of my own responsibility to take care of.
Yeah.
So as an individual, understanding what do you do to manage your stress? How do you reset? How do you even understand what's going on and recognize those points when you're in maybe fight or flight mode, and you're no longer using your prefrontal cortex and you're just going willy-nilly? You see that happen a lot, especially with new operators, myself. You start making decisions out of fight or flight versus really understanding and getting all the information you need to make the decisions. And that's how errors can cascade.
Gotcha.
So does this person recognize when they're stressed, and do they have the ability to ask questions, to stop and say, hey, I need more information? Because as an operator, when you're losing positive control, the best thing you can do is reach out to your quality, your management, and get as many people on board to make the right decision moving forward than just trying to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So does that person have those capabilities to recognize that, to have open communication, to be able to discuss pathways? And that leads in a lot to training. How are you empowering your people to know what good looks like, as well as what does failure look like?
Yeah.
And how do we come back from that? So if someone
also training, but also hiring, like interviewing for those things, right? So maybe just if we could pivot a little bit to thinking externally, how we've talked a lot about the type of environment and the type of people we're looking for, with what type of skills, but like, as applicants and as employees you're trying to attract to the company, also there's an element of like really understanding how to look at talent as a community, as a customer, as someone. It's not a transaction, right, that you're doing. So how do you see organizations need to approach talent acquisition, again thinking of their potential employees as customers, or their talent as customers?
They need to they need to research what is the data telling us people want. In like I think 2021 they did a study of employees and employers were like, people want I think people are looking for better jobs, compensation, but actually the employees responded the top reasons were they didn't feel valued by the organization or their individual managers, and they didn't feel a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
So branding, a mission, really identifying top down what is the driving force behind the organization and how does that person fit into it. So really getting the onboarding right, getting people feeling, because you're spending sometimes 60 to 80 hours honestly, as a manufacturing associate, if there's overtime, you're spending a ton of time with these people. So how, it doesn't have to be a family, but how are you making them feel valued in that role? Is there positive reinforcement? Do you have do you recognize people who do the right thing, and is that consistent? Do you listen to people when they have issues and concerns, or do they fall on deaf ears? Because all of that, as an employee, if I raise issues and they're not addressed, if I have great ideas that aren't heard, and I'm trying to bring innovation, I'm not going to stay there. I want to feel as if I have somewhere to go, so there's trajectory, and I understand exactly what it takes to get there. So that's why talent, like I said, is a human performance piece, because identifying the right roles, the right responsibilities, the pathways to improving and jumping the ladder, that's all going to entice the right people who are going to be happier and feel more valued at work.
Yeah, and I think today also, so there's something called the Edelman's Trust Index out there, and it measures trust, right? And so historically, brands don't have as much trust as leaders do.
Okay.
And actually, employees and your peers establish more trust than the leaders do. So it's interesting to think of when you think of that in terms of hiring and branding, right? So, to me, again, if you're just, your brand is pumping out stuff like, look at us having fun, like, it's like one level of trust down here, right? But then the next two layers are the most critical, which is, and you said it before, how visible is your leader, and how visible is that leadership's characteristics? How do they lead? I think the biggest mistake a lot of organizations have, especially public ones, is their leaders are not very forward facing.
Right.
They're operationally facing, they're internally facing. It's such a mistake. And I'll be very bold to say that the organizations that put their leadership out front build a level of trust, and they build a level of trust in their organization. And the organizations that empower their team to be vocal and to share and to also be out there, be part of Women in Bio and be part of, BioBuzz or ISPE, those organizations that empower are it's going to create more trust. Again, that your employees and your peer group establishes the greatest amount of trust, which is why BioBuzz focuses so much on community. And when we work with a client, when we work to do an employer branding project or a recruiting marketing project, we lean in on the fact that your employees are your greatest asset, but it has to start with leadership. So I think that, especially talking about human performance, how important leadership is to that, how important leadership defines culture, right? So I think that when we talk about treating your talent and your candidates as customers, it does come back to understanding that, like, you have to communicate these values, you have to communicate how you run your organization, and you have to showcase that, because that's going to be the magnet that brings people in.
Exactly.
And then if talent acquisition follows what Sarah says and creates clear established expectations for their roles, that are built around translational skills, not historical historical, you know, I don't know.
Can you lift 20 pounds?
Yeah, historical, regulation, your regulated skills and degrees and everything else. Then I think that's a recipe. I don't know if you have comment on that, but I think that's kind of the recipe that, it delivers a highly efficient hiring organization.
It's a relationship. We talk about the talent lab. You use the word matchmaking, and that's really as an employee, especially with the Great Resignation, and the last couple of years, people are going to find a job that they're fulfilled and happy over pay. I've seen it, like even in my own circle, people are taking reductions in pay
Absolutely.
to escape those toxic cultures or places where they don't feel valued. They have check the box, management tools where maybe you're assessed once a year and you don't even know if you're meeting the mark, or if there's even a mark that's set in stone. So it's a relationship. If I don't know how you're gonna empower me, how you're going to support me and make me feel valued and happy, I don't want to date you. I don't want to work with you. So it comes down to like you said earlier, it comes down to your leaders. How are leaders, and that's why I like to go back to sports, because I always like to lead as a coach. I'm in the thick of it with you. I'm watching real time. I'm trying to provide real time feedback and guide and just really understand the pain points. So often, leaders are high up above the day-to-day mundane that people get buried in, that they're like, oh, why didn't they just follow the procedure? Oh, why, if and it's so easy to be like,
it's in the SOPs, they should have just read the SOPs.
Yeah, how did they not see page 5 in their 85-page SOP that wasn't referenced and isn't accessible while they're working?
Oh man.
So you have to really take a huge, it's in our industry is a little bit behind the times. The nuclear industry, the automobile industry, they've studied the individual. They've captured the data. So often organizations collect all this quality system data and then just keep moving forward and don't do any assessment or really understand how they need to improve. They're just, get to the next step, get to the next gate.
Well, it's almost also, there's like we've always done it this way, and this is, science is very, and this is such a and it's so regulated. There's just not a lot of innovation. But I'll tell you, like, that's why we're launching the talent lab, because, Upwork, had 10% profit growth just in Q3. Like, people are, freelance marketplaces and marketplace approach, IT sector uses it, nursing sector, healthcare sector uses it, right? And, marketing uses this approach all the time. And so, like you said, and actually the defense sector uses this approach. So, but biotech hasn't adopted this idea of, like, really a market-based talent approach where talent is at the center of it all.
Yes, because there's this old world view.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take right now the job and the employer is the power center.
Yes.
And what we're trying to say from a BioBuzz standpoint, talent lab, is no. Like, even in a recruiting model, like a third-party recruiter or job boards or the current way companies hire, the job is the asset, right?
Right.
And we're flipping that, saying, no, the talent is the asset.
Exactly.
And the talent shifts according to where they want to be.
Right.
The company doesn't shift around based on the talent shifts. So we're also really moving this concept forward around talent logistics. And if we can kind of conceptualize and understand that talent is the asset that we're moving around, then the idea of, like, creating, it changes the dynamic.
Right.
But again, it goes back to, like, our industry is kind of behind the times. So the good thing is about what we're doing is that other industries have shown that it works really well.
Exactly. I love facts and data. We know that it works. It's really just getting out of this old world view that you can just change the human out.
Yeah.
And get a new human in there, a new employee in there, and they'll be able to, jumble through the broken procedures and swim through the Swiss cheese holes. Okay, so it's like that's the old world view. The new world view is this idea that the holes that lead into the active operations absolutely result in an increase in likelihood for error and those people losing confidence, feeling less than. So you want to do your employees a service by establishing strong processes, and they don't have to be perfect, but you have to be open to adjusting and hearing new ideas. And it's a highly regulated industry, but the Code of Federal Regulations to me are very broad. I mean, training is what I think in there like 3 times, if that, 2 or 3 times. So how you educate and upskill is really you can gamify. We see organizations out there using VR.
Your company uses VR, right? Doesn't one of the company you're working with?
Yeah, one of the company's quality executive partners, their Virtuosi product, I mean, is just you're opening up then this old outdated like PowerPoint 1970s guy in the clean room smoking a cigarette, like talking about airflow. The next generation, they're going to want the information in small chunks, which is what the brain needs. You don't want to over process and overload, but organizations need to understand what their employees want and need and provide them value, because it's that they will find somewhere else to work. And it's reputation too, not just with
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, because people have memories. Employees have memories, and I think that brand reputation in this industry is important. And I have to say, like, this industry is pretty static, right? We want to change that more, but there's not a lot of people coming in and going. Like, I would say, if you're in IT, or if you're a programmer, you could go program a Candy Crush app, and then you could go programming for like, a government agency, and then you could go program for a biotech company. But if you're a biochemist with a specialty in, downstream processing, you're not jumping over to, you're staying pretty static. So our workforce has a memory.
Oh, big time. It's so small. I've worked with people in Colorado that I started with at HGS. I mean, it's it's a big industry, but it's small when it comes to the workforce. And people remember how you manage people, but people can change. I haven't always been an excellent. I've made questionable decisions because I didn't have all the information. But it's about not only what the organization is doing, but that as an individual, their desire to learn, their desire to become educated. And like other industries, like nurses and doctors, you have to typically go every year and get certified. You can be in the industry and never have a certification, never take an additional course. You just work. And so really, how are organizations influencing continued learning, going and getting maybe micro credentialed?
We see a lot of organizations because that continued learning is also something employees really want. So we see organizations that leverage programs like Biotech, right? Biotech provides hands-on workshops for advanced research skills. So with things changing so dynamically in research environments, and people haven't, looking at new programs in their company, Biotech is right in Montgomery County and Montgomery College. So we see organizations sending people over there to learn flow cytometry or spatial omics or single cell seq. So they're utilizing, these training programs. They're not expecting to do it all in-house.
Right. And that's okay. Really, it's what message are you sending? Are you sending a message that we can onboard you in 2 days and you can be ready to process a critical, complex process in a week? That sends a message that okay, maybe education and hands-on training is not as valuable as speed. And we get into questions about quality there. Whereas if I start an organization and I have an advanced onboarding, I have a training schedule that tells me at what week I will be competent with what equipment and what process, and I have a clear vision of how I'm getting from A to B. It's day and night,
Well, I hope a lot of people are listening to you today, and you know, your email is going to be blowing up because you've made a lot of great points.
I'm so glad to have this discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what Talent Lab is going to bring to the industry is game changing, because like you said, it's the individual. The human performance is all about the human, okay? And we have to remember that people bring their own beliefs, their own stressors, the environment. It all affects how we make decisions, how we behave. So if you have an ecosystem at your organization that allows people bandwidth to fail, bandwidth to have open communication and escalate, and you're working through those problems together, it goes back to that idea of trust and feeling safe. You know, if you're afraid, you're not taking as many risks. You're not going above and beyond. So it really, the Talent Lab focusing on the human, being more than just a resume, that's going to be a huge first step in organizations setting up the right talent and culture. Because like we said, people build your culture. So if you're hiring the wrong folks, putting them in the wrong roles, you will see that over time start to manifest in errors, the gaps in the process, and unhappy.
I'm looking forward to working with you and getting your human factors and human performance insights into how we build this, because we're in building mode. It's an exciting time as we're launching this. So you know, we're getting a lot of great feedback from partners like yourself and employers that are partnering with us right now. So, but I appreciate that. I'm excited about it. And I really do believe that this is the future for a people first hiring approach for our industry, a human performance first approach to our industry. So I want to respect everybody's work day here today.
We're at 12:40. Oh wow, we went a little longer.
I can talk for another 45 minutes. So you know, maybe we got to like launch a long form podcast or something. But in lieu of doing that, Sarah, thank you so much for joining today. Really great nuggets of information. We're gonna capture some of this and put it out there in blog format as well, and little snippets. I wrote that note down when you said, you know, people need bite-sized information. So we're going to take our 40 minutes and create some bites, I think, of it, because you had some great points in here that I really want to share with some of our HR and talent acquisition folks. Any closing words?
People don't go to work wanting to make mistakes, okay? They are there to try to do the best. So do what you can to support them. And, you know, it's all just come from a place of love. I'm very, you know, I'm empathetic. I'm one of those empaths. So I've always tried to lead from a place of love. And I think that's how we make the best decisions.
I love that. Well, we are a community first organization, which is all about each other and looking out. And especially today, these days, we need to be supporting our tribe and each other, whether it's at work or whether it's, you know, the thousands of people that are now unemployed in our industry. We do have to approach it from a point of love and support. So
totally,
great message. Great message.
I'm so grateful to talk to you today, and thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah, thank you all for joining. Appreciate it. Sarah, you're amazing, and we'll do this again soon.
Okay. Farewell.
Take care.